designing it, we're pricing it as we're going.
Yeah.
So we're going, hey, look, we know from experience it's going to be this much to do that.
Yes.
Have you seen a change with the builders that you speak to from
From the practices that they want to
from
embrace?
yeah
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the really good builders, I would say. That they do have a high level of client care, and they know that the best way to do that is to help them from the start.
Yep.
So I think that in the home build mentoring program, we kind of talk about two different approaches there are to finding your builder, and the one is that like the age-old process that everyone's done is that you make a decision that you want to do something, you go and get a design done, and then you send it out to I say 3, sometimes I send it out to 6 builders. Get a price and choose which one. But that process isn't working effectively anymore. And builders are sick of pricing projects that potentially they don't get, or that they find out they're too expensive anyway, and they just abandon the project. So I find that lots of good builders are looking at embracing a new way of doing things, and that's when I talk to homeowners about doing, I call it a one trusted builder approach. But other people call it like a negotiated tender or something, where you work with one builder consistently through the process. But I think if you want to keep control of your project, that is a really good and powerful way that you can do that is by having a builder that you trust involved early in the process. And then I would say that you're right, they can help you be across pricing, they can help you be across scheduling, but I think builders have so much knowledge that they can bring to the earlier stage of project to stop variations, to stop gaps in documentation, to stop a lot of things that they can really help control that from the start. So, and certainly when it's kind of, this is when I talk about having the homeowner and then pulling in your team. You can pull your builder in early and then have your designer there. And when you're all jumping on board, I guess home build mentoring, I would like to say, is a successful project advocate. So of course that I want to stand by the homeowner to look after them and help them direct the process, but I also want to help the designer have clear parameters on what they need to design to stay within budget, and help support them to know where it might be headed for cost. And I want to help the builder by saying we've come up with these parameters and I think the system can work well this way. So I think builders have a lot of knowledge. If they can come in early and help with pricing, other things that I think that they're great to come in earlier for are things like helping direct the working drawing stage or the construction drawing stage. Because the designer, they're not on site. They're potentially not. They're not there with the boots on. And if there's a certain way that something could be constructed that can be more cost effective or more timely, then having a builder say to the designer, right, we're about to jump into the working drawings. I reckon a slab would work best here. And then we could, as the land falls away, transition it to subfloor here. And I reckon the roof structure could work really well like this. And if you can have those open discussions, they don't need to be big or huge, but you have those open discussions with your team at the start. And then also when it flows on to the next stages and the consultants, you have your engineers and things like that. And if the builder can see the engineer's drawings as they're being developed, and they can be making comment about things that they can see aren't right or they need tweaked at that point, this stops variations and changes in the engineering later that are going to be at a cost to the project or the homeowner. And you can see here we're all working towards the main end goal, which is a successful end project, which is a win for the homeowner, it's a win for the designer, and it's a win for the builder. So when we stop being so disjointed with the process and start pulling everyone in early, it's totally possible to keep control of your project. And have it be a positive experience for everyone involved. So when you're talking experiences, you're absolutely right. But I think creating a meaningful home for you and your family is such a wonderful experience. But we've all heard the horror stories where the absolute opposite was true. And you talk to homeowners and they say building or renovating was the worst experience of my life and I would never, ever, ever, ever do it again. So what we need to do is work early in the process. So, I think anything that's, really rewarding in life, like it's it's never easy.
Mm.
So it's not meant to be easy, but it can be easier, and we can keep control of it. When we have control of it, that's when it can be an enjoyable experience for everyone involved.
Yeah, and it can definitely, in a funny way, one of the things that I talk with a men's group on a Monday night, and there's things get thrown out onto the internet with that all the time. But it's funny because it's called a safe place to land, and one of the things that I'm sort of hearing from the way you're discussing things at the moment is that there's a certain aspect where people are also going to want to feel safe to be able to talk about all these sorts of things as well. And when it comes to that, do do you see that the safety sort of does come into it when you see projects sort of going the way that they should be going? Everybody's talking to each other, and uh, and the project starts getting delivered, and you can sort of see that, okay, all the people that have been involved up to this point are they're happy with everything the way that it's going. Everyone's feeling comfortable,
Yeah.
and people are feeling sort of safe with the way that it's going. Would you say that you see the safety aspect come out? Like, I feel that it does, and I've seen it with some of my clients as well, is that they feel safe that they can have the conversation with anybody at any time if they need the engineer to come out on site, or when they are actually doing the work itself on site. Then everybody's feels safe that they can all have this meeting, and you're not going to have builders sitting in that corner.
Yeah.
And that's the traditional thing that we do see, is one sitting in one corner,
Yeah.
and nobody's talking.
Yes.
But when you get that safety that everybody's standing around the table and they're looking at the solution, looking at the problem, working out a solution, and just going, this is going to be the best way to do it.
Yeah. So, and what I'm proposing is not a system that there's never anything that doesn't come up that needs to be addressed.
Yep.
Like, of course, something happens on site, we need to get the engineer out. But I think when everyone is on the same team and we're saying this has come up, it's unexpected. What can we do about it? And we all put our heads together and say, yeah, okay, wasn't exactly how we thought it was going to go, but that can work. And I think what I tell people, the premise of the home build mentoring is that you need to engage in the right relationships, and then you need to action these learnable and actionable steps within each of those relationships. So I think what you're talking about now, which is kind of the premise of the piece that I did that you saw, is that it's the people, it's the relationships in that you engage in that are going to protect your project. So engaging with people that you trust, that you take the time to get to know and trust, and they take the time to let you get to know them so that they can trust them. But if you're just going to throw a price and say this is it and it's the best price and you jump in, you don't know, you don't have that level of trust, and it causes the sleepless nights, it causes the angst and everything like that. But when you feel like everyone on the project's got each other's back, so if it's a renovations and additions project and the builder comes up against something in the existing conditions when they take off the plaster that no one could have known before, but the builder can have an open discussion with the homeowner and say, look, we've come up against this, we couldn't have known it was there, so unfortunately we're going to have to rectify this, and this is a variation that we're going to have to issue for the project. But when the homeowner trusts the builder and they can see it and it's explained to them, then it's fine. We're going to there's some things that come up that we're just going to have to, trust the people that we're working with. But when, if they're working with someone that's put a price together and they don't know them, they don't feel trust in them, but they've chosen them because they were the cheapest builder, and then the builder sends through an email and says, oh yeah, we missed this, and this off the quote, you've got to pay for it. It's a different setup.
It is.
It's and when it comes to homes, I think it's a funny one. I don't think that there's many things that compare with it in terms of something that holds so much meaning in terms of heart, and what they want for their family and how they want to feel in it and how proud they want to be, and also something that costs so much money. And trying to get that balance from people at the start, so we can get something that can be really beautiful and that you can love it, but you can get it for a price that you can afford as well. It's so important.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree with you. Like when it does come to the trust factor with the builder, the tried, and we'll put it in whatever they're called. can't remember. Wasn't that good at the
Asterix.
talking asterisks.
Yeah.
The one of the fun things about it was the tried and true way of doing things was just throw a set of plans across to somebody and basically just wait for a price to come back. And then if the price is good, if you're happy with the price, if it's the lowest price, we know that some of the issues that can come with that, and that's when the variations definitely come into it. But one of the things that I noticed, and this was before I became a builder myself, I was on the tools just doing my carpentry, but I'd always see builders dealing with homeowners for variations, and there'd been no, I guess you'd say it would be like the pre-construction of the conversations beforehand. And this is what I love about what we are talking about is the conversations that need to be had about what could possibly happen down the line. They've already happened before you get on site, before you sign contracts. It's that preparatory work that people sort of go into, or that should be going into. I mean, even right down to the finer details of what's written in a contract.
Yeah.
I know that there's builders out there that just go, sign the bottom of the page, don't bother about reading it, and that's it, it's done. But when people are having those conversations about, okay, here's something in a contract that you probably don't know about, but if a builder turns around and it's builder forced variations and they become more than 15% of the original contract price, there's massive red flags there for that. But most people don't know about that. Like everybody that I've had a conversation with about just that one term in a contract, and I've seen contracts where that's actually been scrubbed out, and it's actually legislation.
Wow.
So it's one of those things. The conversations that sort of go on there, like
it's the relationship building.
It is.
That's where the relationship building
It is.
is. So that's where you need to take the time.
Yep.
To build that relationship, to build the trust, and it's trust in both ways. Like I think with homeowners, with designers, with builders, when they meet with each other, it's a two-way interview. To make sure that the builder feels like that they'll be a great client, and then the client feels like they have great trust and they'll be a great builder for their project. And when you have that two-way respect, I reckon you're 80% of the way there.
Oh, definitely.
When the builder's got the skills and the knowledge and understands the project and has priced it really effectively, and then you build that trust in the relationship, then it's going to be okay. It is going to be okay. But it's when I think I say quite often that the approach that homeowners take, and quite often it's because they don't know any other way or think that there is any other way, is to wing it. And the process is too big and it's too complicated to wing it. It is fraught with danger, and it can all be avoided with proper planning and with engaging with the right people.
Have you found? This is probably going to be a funny little question, but we're talking about when people go through the process and they're engaging with a builder and that sort of thing. Have you found anyone that's been an owner builder that's been wanting to speak to you about how the process can work for them to be able to get the best from their project as well?
I've had people inquire with me to say we're looking at going owner builder. Would you consider working with us? And I would say I'm happy to help you. And
love the interruptions on site. It's great.
Do you want me to wait?
Be able to go.
I haven't worked with anyone doing owner builder yet, and it's not because I won't. But generally, if someone's going owner builder, they're trying to build their project as cheaply as possible. So they're not likely to invest in working with me or for me helping them. They're more likely to invest in someone helping them in more of a project management role or something like that.
The reason.
So I'm not opposed to it, but having said that, most of my home build mentoring program is about investing in the right relationships. And I think sometimes when you're going owner builder, you're kind of taking on the role of those relationships. And I think it's a scary route. I think owner builder is a very scary route that you should undertake with caution.
Well, I think we've all seen the TV shows, and there's plenty of ones out there, and probably the biggest one is obviously the grand designs and that sort of thing. And don't get me wrong, love grand designs. The content that they create is just second to none. One of the things that you always see with it is predominantly it's owner builders, or they've had a builder, the relationship's broken down, or something has gone wrong, or they've run out of money, or then it's a delay's happened, or something like that. But you look at the way that goes. Owner builders, yes, it can be enjoyable if you're willing to put in the time to do it.
I think that's it. I think sometimes it's underestimated the time involved in actually managing that. Yeah.
And the reason where I was sort of going with the owner builder stuff was, do we see it as though people do underestimate what effort and value having people on the team, having the team of people, whether it is the builder, whether it is the engineer, all these people that do come into it, and what value they actually deliver and how they deliver the value can come from the relationships that you build with them.
Yes, I think absolutely. I think that's why I think owner builders are certainly, I think it's happening less than it used to.
Yes.
It's just too complex. It's a complex process for people that are in the industry all the time. There's, new legislation, new things to be across every time. And I think it's a little bit like design as well, that I think very often people will say, oh, we know exactly what we want. We just need the plans drawn up.
Yep.
And
that's probably the most common thing that I've heard get said to designers and architects is, this is what we want. We just need you to draw it.
Yeah. And I can't tell you, even when I was practicing as a designer, how many times I had an email that said, we want a 4-bedroom house in this style with a picture on it.
Yep.
What's your fees and when can you start? And then you'd be going, well, they do not care about the relationship with me at all. They're just sending this out to potentially 20 designers and see who comes back with the cheapest price to get it drawn up. But, when people ask for plans, plans are the outcome that you get from your design. It's not the process. So the way that your home is designed is what will inform how well it lives and it feels. So if you've designed it yourself and design isn't your background, and I think that you should absolutely have input and have a crack, draw it up, but be open to taking the advice and direction of someone who's potentially done it for a really long time and might be able to point out things that you haven't even thought of. Quite often when people sketch up a plan, they haven't considered orientation or cost, in terms of, we just thought we'd add a meter to the side of the house here. Like, that should be really cheap, right? Like, it's not supporting anything there,
or putting it right on the boundary. And when someone's like, oh, let's design this. We've got this gap down the side of the house. We don't want it anymore. Yeah. Can we just get rid of it and just put the house over on the boundary?
Yeah, because that'll make the living room bigger. Yeah. Like, so there's lots in design, and it's much more than just a floor plan as well. When designers design, they design, they kind of design it 3D in their mind to think, okay, this is how it's going to look in elevation and in 3D and how we're going to move around it. So it's much more than just sketching something on a floor plan and saying that we want it like this. So just be cautious of saving, potentially a certain amount of money on design, because you could potentially be risking the whole outcome of your project.
Definitely.
The plans are the outcome of what the designer will deliver so that the builder can build from it, but it's not, it doesn't reflect what they're bringing to the project.
Definitely. Oh, well, we can definitely have a lot of fun with all this, can't we? No, well, I want to thank you for joining me today. It's been really good to have a chat about the things that you get up to. So if you had an elevator pitch,
right,
on the spot, I know
gosh,
it's probably a little bit difficult, but if people wanted to reach you, I'll be able to put contact details and that sort of thing in the description, so people will be able to get that. But if they're listening to it, what's the best way to get in touch with you if they're looking for someone that can give them the guidance for their project?
Yeah,
like you can.
sure. So, well, my website's www.katierees.com. There's links on the website to book a free 20-minute discovery session.
Yep.
So if you have a project and you're not sure which way to head with it, I'd welcome anyone to book a discovery session. It doesn't mean that I'm going to, reach through the screen and force you to sign a contract to do home build mentoring. If home build mentoring isn't the right fit for you, that's totally fine. Just let me help set you on the right path and maybe point out some things that you might not be aware of. And of course, if you have a really meaningful home that you want to get right, then I want to be the person that stands beside you and helps you make that happen.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much, Katie. Really appreciate your time, and I hope you've enjoyed the experience
I
of doing a
have.
podcast.
It's been great.
And I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope that you've gotten some benefit from it. And well, you know how to get in contact with me. You're all over social media as well. I am as well. And you can get in contact with us if you've got any questions. And as you can see, we're willing to help. So we hope everybody has a really great rest of the day. And thanks again, Katie. And we'll see you again soon. Thank you very much.